What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS3 Raw TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well, safe and sound, away from all this craziness that's in our world today. We're going to talk about some stuff today. I think that it's going to be about the supplement industry and supplements, and I don't think that some companies are actually aware of this. I know that some companies actually are aware of this, but some aren't even aware of what's actually going on, and they just fall prey to the keeping up with the Joneses and having to do what everybody else is doing in the supplement industry. Now, bear with me. About 5-6 years ago, I had signed with a company called Primeval Labs. And Primeval was absolutely pivotal in bringing some products to market that really hadn't been done before, definitely not the way that they did it. And I remember having this discussion with the owners one night, and it turned into, well, what should our next product be, right? And now what happens in the fitness or the supplement industry is everybody's searching for that next anabolic steroid replacement. That's what they're searching for. They want to find whatever ingredient, nutrient, or whatever that's new, that science has found recently, that can be marketed as a substitute, although not a good one, a substitute for anabolic steroids. It makes you bigger, it gets you leaner, it gives you a better pump, gives you more energy. Everything that steroids do, increases growth hormone, helps you sleep better. Everything that steroids do, that's what they're looking to do. Now, that's all well and good, but the problem is it has failed over and over and over again, the supplement industry, to find something that mimics anabolic steroids. Now, let me just kind of go back. I've been doing this for a long time, guys, since 1992 or 1991. I started training. By halfway through my first month of training, I was taking supplements already. And at that time, they had these, it was the same shit that's going on nowadays. We have these anabolic steroid replacements, right? And we had three things back then. We had Smilax, we had dibengazide, which is a coenzyme, coenzyme B12, and then we had boron, okay? All three of these are supposed to increase testosterone. And there was all this data behind it, right? There was data behind Smilax, dibengazide, and boron. So what happened was that data wound up in the ads, and those ads wound up in the magazines, and the magazines wound up in the hands of people like myself. The next thing you know, we're buying these products trying to increase our testosterone. Now, at that age, like 15, 16 years old, you're not getting your testosterone checked. So you can't tell whether it went up a couple of points, right? Which technically the data shows, increase in this percent, that percent. But it wasn't enough to actually build muscle. So what was happening was no results were coming. So this stuff pretty much just disappeared, right? Just went off the face of the earth, right? But there were other things that were still around. Now, fast forward to now times, right? There is a product that's out, and I'm not saying that it doesn't work for some people. Some people, I don't know if it's a placebo, but there is a lot of data behind something called laxogenin. Now, there are a couple different types of laxogenin. One of them is actually complete bullshit that a lot of companies put in their products. It's not even absorbable, doesn't do shit. One of them has clinical data, and some people claim that they see results from it. Now, here's the deal. When Laxo first came out, it was being compared to Anavar. They're saying like a mild dose of Anavar, which is an anabolic steroid, which got everybody up in arms. Now, pretty soon, every company had a laxogenin out there, right? They had to have a Laxo, fucking Ultra Laxo, Mega Laxo, Added Laxo, Laxo Plus, all these different stuff. You saw different price ranges going up and down. A lot of marketing went behind Laxo, but as of right now in 2021, Laxo has fallen short to be that anabolic steroid substitute, just like boron, Smilax, dibengazide. It has failed again, right? With a new thing. Now, we constantly look for these new things, right? Laxo is sexy. It's new. It had data behind it, right? Well, here's the deal. Future proves past, right? Let's go back to the past again, right? We just went back to the past with dibengazide. There was an individual named Bill Phillips, which some of you may not know if you're newer to the fitness industry, but those of us who've been around a while know who Bill was. He created a company called EAS. And what they came out with was the first creatine, which was called Phosphagen, right? Phosphagen. They came out with three products. It was Phosphagen, GKG, which was glutamine alpha-ketoglutarate, and CLA. Now, here's the deal. Phosphagen, which was creatine, is still around today, and not only does it have the most studies, the most science, and the most data to back it up, but it literally is one of the most effective products that has ever been created for a supplement, ever in the history of supplements. Other than amino acids, protein, carbohydrates, and stuff like that, creatine absolutely is probably the top supplement that actually gets results. Now, we go down to keto, the glutamine ketoglutarate. This one I definitely felt more fullness on, right? So it did kind of work, but basically it was a more absorbable form of glutamine, which helped volumize the muscle, so you actually felt a better pump. Now the other one, CLA, right? It's still around today, but CLA, after Bill Phillips put that out, it kicked off, and everybody and their brother were talking about the powerful fat burning effects of CLA. And there was a bunch of data behind it, right? Data. So we went from using ephedrine, caffeine, and aspirin, which were technically drugs and worked really well for fat loss, to people jumping on the bandwagon for CLA. We're looking for something new and sexy, right? Ephedrine, caffeine, and aspirin were kind of old, right? People knew about it, they've been using it for years, but it worked, right? So the CLA came out, people rushed to get that, and what happened? They didn't see the results. Despite the data being there, you've never heard of one single person go, yo, I took CLA and almost saw it, I got so lean, it was unbelievable, the product's crazy. No, it didn't work. So what happened? Well, CLA, although it's still out there, it's definitely a good fat to put in your diet, ceases to give you the results that it claimed in the data, right? So you're seeing this trend. We had things that work like ephedrine, caffeine, and aspirin. We had things that worked like creatine, yet we're still looking for these sexy things that will be scientific breakthroughs. Now here's the thing, between 1992 and 2021, for bodybuilding and fitness purposes, training has not changed. They have not created anything new, they have not found anything new. Everything is repackaged. Diet-wise, they have not created anything new. They've put some new fancy names to old school shit and repackaged it and sold it to you. They're finding newer, sexier ways to give you guys the same shit they've been feeding you for the last 20 years. But the supplement industry, they're looking for that one thing that's like creatine that's going to pop out, has yet to be found. But what they're doing is they're looking at all these exotic things, these things that have data behind them, that, you know, that it's a small group of people. You know, they'll say, well, this study had, 32 people, and it was a certain type of person, right? There's like over 7 billion people on the planet, right? So 32 people it did this to. Well, are those 32 people that are in these studies, in these tests, like you? That's the question, right? Are they training like you? Are they eating like you? Do they want the results like you? Or are these 32 people satisfied with when they did a DEXA scan, there was 1 ounce more muscle on that DEXA scan, right? Which can be manipulated, or caliper tests, or whatever. They can all be manipulated to get the data. But they had like 1 ounce more of muscle in 10 weeks, and that was a 50% increase than the placebo. Well, placebo got none, they got 1 ounce. What the fuck? Like that, yeah, it's a 50, but they go, oh, with 32 people, they had a 50% increase in muscle mass, right? A 50%, you're gonna gain 50% more muscle in the same amount of time. That's how that's marketed, even though it's a fucking ounce. It doesn't even show up on your physique. The only way you can actually measure it is by getting some kind of crazy body fat test, and you're not sure whether that's accurate. You could have actually lost muscle, and it'll tell you that you gain muscle, depending on how that test runs. So here we have these ways of bending these studies, things like that. Now, we're going to go back. We're jumping these timelines, and I'm keeping you guys with me on these timelines. We're going to go back to that discussion with Primeval. And it was a late night discussion, too. I remember very clearly. And I said, I think that bodybuilding itself, as a sport, as a lifestyle, has reached a tipping point. I think that what's happening now is we're searching for things that really aren't going to work because we just want to find something new that we hope. It's like putting a new hope on it, like we think it's going to work. And what happened was we had SARMs come out and pro-hormones. And those things worked like anabolic steroids, right? But they were natural. They're coming from natural sources. Well, those things became illegal in 2020. So it seems like anything that works like an anabolic steroid is going to be classified as an anabolic steroid. Now, bear that in mind. We've gotten to that point. We're at the point now where anything works like an anabolic steroid, even if it's a replacement and natural for anabolic steroids, it's going to be labeled a steroid and will then be illegal prescription only. That's how it works. So we can either keep looking for these strange things that are popping up, these nutrients that have data that don't really apply, right? They don't apply to what we do. They don't work for us. And then market the shit out of them and hope that everybody buys it and hope that they're training hard enough and eating the right food so they see results so they think the supplement is working. Or we can look at the past and say, okay, nowadays in 2021, I would say the physiques are actually worse. For the average gym goer that lives the lifestyle, I'm not talking about competitor, even the competitors, the physiques were better. They were in better conditioning. They were in better off-season shape condition, excuse me. And they overall looked better. Now the people are bigger nowadays, but that doesn't necessarily mean better. So these better physiques of yesteryear, what were they doing? And at the same time, the classic physique division was started because bodybuilding had hit a critical mass. They did not want those guys to get any bigger. That was not good for the public. It was going in a direction they didn't like. So what happens? If you hit that critical mass, you go backwards. So classic physique was a step back towards the 90s and the 80s where the physiques were more aesthetic, right? They didn't have the big bloated looks. It wasn't all about just muscle anymore. And I saw that trend. When I saw that division being created, I told Premium, I said, we're going backwards. The rest of the supplement industry may be going forwards, trying to do something, but the actual lifestyle itself and the sport is going backwards. So the supplement industry is going in a different direction than where the actual sport needs to go. Well, they said, well, what do you suggest? I said, well, back in the day, the guys that really got good gains, they really did well. They were consistent with their training, consistent with their eating, but they were consistent with taking things like their amino acids, right? Their amino acids. So their amino acids were like the size of my thumb, and they take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these things. They fucking pop them down, swallow them with water, and be ready to roll. Well, what can we do, right, amino acid-wise, to build upon what was used in the past that worked really well, to bring new school and old school together and create a product that works like that, but would be better assimilated, or whatever the case may be with the technology we have now. So I said amino acids is where we have to go. Now, why do we stop taking those amino acids, those big pills, if they work so well, right? If something works well, why do you stop taking it? Because we came out with something called BCAAs, okay? And BCAAs could be flavored. The essential amino acids couldn't be flavored. They had no way to do it back then. But these could be flavored, and now you no longer had to take these big horse pills. You could just sip on this little cocktail of your BCAAs, and it was like fruity, it was like lemonade, it was like whatever you wanted. So we left behind what was working to go with the sexier thing, which was just a portion of what was in those. Now, my thing is, I said, hey, new school meets old school. If we use the essential amino acids again, because now we can flavor them, they contain branched chain amino acids in that formula. You get the 1-2 punch. You get the old school and the new school together. So we go backwards, but at the same time, we use the new technology to go backwards. We need to put out an EAA product. That point, EAA Max was born. After that phone call, EAA Max was then off and running. And it became one of the hottest supplements, one of the biggest sellers, and one of the leaders in the entire supplement industry of essential amino acids. So why? Why did I figure go backwards? It doesn't make any sense. Because there's things like EAAs, okay, essential amino acids. There are things like carbohydrate sources, right? Carbohydrate powders and things like that. There are things like herbs, as well as other nutrients from plants that not only have data to back them up, but they've been used in real life for centuries. And they're continuing to be used. I guarantee you right now, 5 years from now, Laxogena won't be found anywhere because it's completely fucking useless for most people. So people will stop using it, companies will stop producing it. But there are herbs and nutrients and plants that to this day are still being produced and used. After 1,000 years, they're still using it. So why the fuck are we not looking at these things? Why are we looking for something that's not even proven, that we're hoping some kind of invention happens, right? Which makes sense because that's what the evolution is. It's inventions. Well, what if evolution is taking these things and creating the new technologies to make them more absorbable, extracting and making them a little bit stronger, whatever the case may be, and use those things that we already know work, right? So creatine, perfect example. Creatine we knew worked. Well, once we figured out that it worked, the creatine didn't go away. They found, oh shit, we can kind of fuel inject creatine with putting some simple sugars in it, right? We had those type of products that came out. Now, some of those are not around anymore, but creatine is still around. So new school meets old school. And I really stepped back and said, there are things that have worked for years and years and years, and they've just been done away with and left in the past because something sexier came out. And those sexier things never fucking pan out. Where are they right now? Where are these things that were popping up left and right? All these random things that were popping up over the last 5, 10 years that many of us don't even see anymore. They're gone. However, essential amino acids are still here. Why? Because they work. They've always worked. That's something that will never change. Your body needs essential amino acids to grow. So there are things like Shilajit, there are things like Sumaroot, Cordyceps, Mumio. There are things that have been used for centuries by people all over the world as adaptogens, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we had a product called acetylcholine. by Muscle Tech contain acetyl L-carnitine to raise testosterone. We now know it does not raise testosterone. It doesn't raise testosterone in any way, shape, or form. What happens is the acetabuline came out and had Tribustan in it, or Tribulus in it. Well, yeah, that's going to raise your testosterone. But Tribulus had been out for a little while, so it wasn't really sexy anymore. But they said, hey, if we put the Tribulus in the product and then put the acetyl L-carnitine in there, and people start to see results, they're going to think it's our new product, the acetyl L-carnitine and the acetabuline. That's what people, that's how they were marketing that. We now know that acetyl L-carnitine doesn't raise testosterone. Even if it did, you'd have to get a blood test to see the difference. You don't see it physically. So all of these products that have not lived up to the hype just kind of fall by the wayside and nobody mentions them. Nobody talks about it. Nobody actually looks at it and studies it. Well, that was until we started studying about the essential amino acids. So now be aware, guys, there's going to be things that pop up constantly. New things, sexy things, etc., etc. The data that comes out for these newer, sexier things, what frustrates me is they'll say, you know, the control group had 50 people in it, and this is what happened, and you know, they gained 400% more muscle than the placebo group. But when you look at it, the placebo group wasn't training hard, wasn't following their diets. They didn't put them in a controlled environment. They asked them to report their lifestyles that they were doing. Now, let's be honest. Other than a competitive bodybuilder, how many people do you know that live the lifestyle? They're going to be so strict, like you're a competitive bodybuilder, to actually be able to track those results to see. Very few people. So there's going to be errors in reporting, which throw that data off and those studies off. But that doesn't get added to the equation. They just tell you this is what happened and this is the results. They don't tell you, well, the results could have been skewed because X, Y, Z, but this is what we found, so we have to go by this. We can't live in everybody's houses and pay attention to what they do every day. So the data doesn't always pan out because the data itself is sometimes flawed. Not all the time, but sometimes flawed. Matter of fact, creatine didn't have a lot of data behind it until people started using it. There was very little data when it came out. And I remember it was like 100 grams was like $45 or something like that. It was crazy. And you had to load 25 grams in the beginning, which I still believe is the best way to use creatine. Not just like 3 grams before your workout or 5 grams. No, I believe loading it. You'd run through 100 grams really quick, but that product worked. And what happened was those bodybuilders that were using it were reporting it works, it works, it works. More studies were done. More studies started looking at the mechanisms of the actions of it, how it was working for this type of person and that type of person. Somebody that's a cyclist, somebody that's a bodybuilder. There was all kinds of studies done now because when people took creatine, it fucking worked in real life. That's the problem. A lot of these things on paper don't pan out. And you see it. There's a big hype for a product and the big push comes behind it in the marketing and people get all excited about it and they start buying the product and you see the popularity starting to just wind down. You see it starting to disappear until you see that product going on sale a lot. Buy one, get one free, 30% off, etc., whatever the case may be, that specific product, right? So what happens? Then that company that's losing sales on that product because it doesn't work and never panned out has another new product. There was a product that said something like, we can put it in the protein powder and you'll absorb the protein like 10,000 times better and you can eat less protein because this thing helps your body absorb it. That was a couple years ago. Where the fuck is that product? It never panned out. Right? Despite all the data, despite all the shit, there wasn't a single person that I know on this fucking planet that used that stuff in their protein and said, I only had to take in 25 grams of protein instead of 50 and I fucking got the same result. It failed miserably and the data was there also. So despite data being there, despite these newfound things, despite these new inventions, these evolution of this, evolution of that, here's the deal, guys. The stuff that we used back in the day, the stuff that consistently gave people results, has been all but forgotten to sell you something that is not based on data and science. It's based on skewed data and science. It is not based on real world results. It is based on how you can take the data that's presented, twist it and market it to get people to think that that's a replacement for anabolic steroids and it's the next best thing. And then it goes on, boom, and they push it and push it. Another one was that glycol-phenylprop or whatever the fuck it was. That product was crazy. We were given cases of it to put it in a product that a friend of mine was actually formulating. And we used that product and it didn't work. And we called the company up and said, hey, your product doesn't work. He said, well, how are you taking it? So we take 3 capsules a day. He said, well, you have to take 3 capsules, but one at a time, separated throughout the day. So another 2-3 weeks, we started doing that. It didn't do shit. We wound up giving away the rest because it didn't do shit. That product started getting put in all these different pre-workouts for a better pump. That product's not even found nowadays. That was about 8 years ago. That product is not only not on the market, but it's not even found nowadays. You might be able to find some companies that produce it by itself for whatever reason, but that was being put in major brands. And I remember the guy that was telling us, hey, you'll be one of the first ones to put it. You know, we're talking with all these major brands. It's going to be in all the pre-workouts, This is the next big thing. This is the next best thing. It gives you big pumps. It helps you build muscle. It does this, it does that. It didn't do fucking shit. Despite all that data, it didn't do shit, and it withered away and disappeared within a year's time. Pay attention. Grab some magazines from back in the day. Start thumbing through them. Look at the products that are in them. Pay attention to where they are now. You'll see stuff like creatine. Where's CLA? You'll still see it around here and there. People still try to market it based on the data, but they're marketing to the average person on TV. The average person who's not really into fitness or the fitness lifestyle or bodybuilding, they market it to them, right? Because they don't have a fucking clue. What they do is show them the data, and they say, this is a product that has sold 4 million bottles in a year, because when it came out, everybody had hyped it, and we thought it was gonna work, so we bought it, and those statistics are there. So they take those statistics of the product that was sold before anybody really knew if it worked. They add those to a commercial for the average person that says, there's clinical data backing it up, this is backed by science, blah, 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 lose 300% more fat in the same amount of time, $29.99. Shit, that stuff was like $8.99 back in the day, and people still buy it. So once it filters through the fitness industry, the supplement industry, and the bodybuilding world, it goes to the mainstream. Hydroxycut was the same way. When they couldn't sell it to bodybuilders anymore, fuck, there were commercials on TV. Midnight fucking TV commercials talking about Hydroxycut, Slim Quick, all these different things, because it didn't work. It didn't work in real time for the bodybuilders, and those people paid attention to their diets, they trained hard, they did their cardio, they lived a healthy lifestyle, and it didn't work for them. So the next marketing technique when that dries up is, hey, let's hit the average person that's sitting on the couch who doesn't know any better. All we need is first-time sales, right? First-time sales of 20 million people out there, we're good. But there's going to be some idiots out there that'll be like, well, to really try it, I need like 2 or 3 bottles. I got to go on for like 3 months to really see if it works. There are going to be people that do that. There are going to be people that in their heads, because they started eating better and doing a little bit of working out, saw some results taking that product, they're going to think it works. They're going to be a repeat customer. So they're going to be able to manipulate who buys that product based on what we did. The fact that we bought them originally, and that's why so many bottles are sold. It's frustrating, guys. It's really hard. And I look at things and people go, well, Jerry, you know, your products, the things that you put in your products, you know, like they're not new. No, they're not new. They're things that I've known about for 20 years. The things that I have personally used when I was a natural bodybuilder, getting better results than a lot of the people around me, those are the things I was using. I went back to basics, because that's where you have to go when you need to get back to fucking starting over and actually see what's going on. You need to eliminate everything that's around you and go back to basics. I said, what was working for me before? Things like inosine worked fantastic. Things like Sumaroot worked fantastic. Those things are what worked for me in the past, and those are the type of things that I put in my products. Things that I know for a fact work. Now, my essential amino acid formula has essential amino acids in there, which are the same thing of those big horse pills we used to take, but new school meets old school. Collagen. Most people don't even know why you should have collagen. I have complete videos up about top to bottom about what collagen does and why you should be taking it. I put the collagen with the essential amino acids. You now have a product, old school meets new school. Add the biotin in there, which most people think is just for your hair, skin, and nails. That helps your body actually absorb and utilize more efficiently the 3 macronutrients. That's unheard of for most people to put in a product for that purpose. New school meets old school. But I do not believe we need to be out there looking for some kind of magical nutrient that is going to replace anabolic steroids that's safe and effective, because if it has anabolic-like steroid effects, it's going to be classified as a steroid. Even if it's natural, it will still be classified as a steroid, and it will be deemed illegal. They've done it already. Those pro-hormones come from natural sources, and they are all illegal because they produce drug-like effects. So until that changes, we won't have anything on the market that will produce the effects that most people out there are looking for a shortcut. We'll only have products out there that help support what you're doing to get you better results than if you weren't taking them alone. So be aware, guys. There's a lot of sexy stuff coming out. You'll see a lot of things. You'll see a lot of data. You'll see a lot of people that are in the know, a lot of people that can spit out big words, etc. Well, my question is this. How many things have they put out in the past? What have they been involved with, and where are those products now? If those products now are all but fucking completely gone, why are they gone? If they work so well, because creatine is still here, amino acids is still here, carbohydrate powders are still here. So if those other things are gone, why are they gone? Because they didn't fucking work. BioStrengthTraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below. But don't fight. BioStrength.com is a blog. So shit doesn't work bicep. Pay attention to what's going on, and we are out.